Man, there's just something I love about a creepy small town in a horror movie. And about a year ago now, I put out a video on 10 of my favorite small town horror movies of all time. And today, I decided let's do a sequel. So here are 10 more creepy small town horror movies. My name is Daniel with the Cobwebs channel, and let's get started.
Danny, darling, is that you?
Something terrifying has happened to the children.
The Children from 1980, which takes place in a town where a nuclear plant leak turns a busload of children into murderous atomic zombies with highly contagious radiation. So I entirely dedicate this review of The Children to viewer of the channel, K Powers, who is a huge fan of this movie and has been trying to get me to watch it for so long, left so many comments on this channel about it. So this is for you. And I'm glad I watched it because I really enjoyed it. It takes place in a cozy little early 80s southern small town and centers around the town sheriff. A lot of these movies center around the sheriff. That's a big theme of small town horror movies. And he finds a school bus that was supposed to have a bunch of the town's kids abandoned, and a lot of the movie is him and the other townspeople banding together trying to figure out what happened to their kids. This is a movie that really needs to take place in a small town. It needs to be about a small community who has to work together to figure out what has happened to their own. And all of that beginning drama I actually thought was really interesting, was pretty well done. I mean, the characters, the actors aren't amazing, but they feel real. They feel very authentic, which was cool. But the actual horror of these atomic zombie children is crazy, because basically what happens is they will go up to somebody, hug them, and it like immediately gives people the craziest, fastest working radiation poisoning ever, where their entire body just flares up and burns. And it's absolutely crazy. There's definitely some slow parts in the movie. It feels like they did their best to stretch this out to feature length. But by the time you get to the third act, it really does ramp up. And there is a lot of crazy stuff going on. And this is a movie where no one is safe. I was entirely unable to predict who's gonna live, who's gonna die, where is this going to go, and it gets bleak. It really is kind of a bleak horror movie that gets pretty gnarly. But The Children is a low budget, kind of slow at times 80s horror movie that really does peak when it needs to.
This is an emergency. I have to get to the cemetery as soon as possible. Please.
Offseason from 2021. Upon receiving a mysterious letter that her mother's grave has been vandalized, Marie travels to the desolate island town where she's buried. Just as she arrives, the island closes for the season, leaving Marie trapped in a nightmare. This is what I've been meaning to see ever since it first came out, because one, it's starring Jocelyn Donahue, who is the star of House of the Devil. So if you like that, you like Jocelyn Donahue walking around spooky atmosphere, anticipating something scary happening, Offseason is another entry in that genre. And it's directed by Mickey Keating, who's done some interesting indie horror movies, but he is a guy who's like the master of the homage. Pretty much everything he does is a direct homage to something. And Offseason is very much a pastiche of Lovecraft, Deep One's mythology. Think Shadow over Innsmouth, think Stuart Gordon's Dagon, that movie, with a little bit of Messiah of Evil thrown in there. So it is clearly him trying to make the most typical Lovecraftian, creepy small town horror movie he possibly can. And he succeeds. And I did think it was really cool. And it really is just such a good premise of somebody going to an island town that is closing for the winter. The bridge actually goes up and she's just stranded there. The atmosphere is so spooky. There are so few people around, but the people she finds are really weird, offbeat, and creepy. And of course, it's a bit of a mystery of her figuring out the mythology of this town. Again, very Lovecraft, very Deep Ones, and what her mother's connection to it was and why she has been called back there. So it's got some intriguing story stuff there for sure, but the story is secondary. It's very much about Mickey Keating homaging those things that he loves, and those are things that I love too, so that kind of works out. And having Jocelyn Donahue, a really good indie horror actress, go around some creepy atmosphere. It works. I really enjoyed it.
Bring someone with you to see this motion picture. You'll want some live hands to hold during the performance. And you won't want to go home alone after it's finished, if you're able to go home.
Macabre from 1958. After his wife and her blind sister have died under his care, a doctor's young daughter is kidnapped and reported as buried alive. He is given just 5 hours to try and rescue her. So this is a 1950s William Castle movie, and more important than that, it's William Castle's first horror movie and his first entry in his series of horror films where he used really theatrical gimmicks. That's very much what William Castle is famous for, and when he tried it out here, he sold life insurance policies to all of the people who came to see the movie in case they died of fright during the film. It worked, the movie ended up being a success, and the next year he made House on Haunted Hill, The Tingler, then he made 13 Ghosts. So this really was the start of an iconic run of horror movies. And Macabre is one that I hadn't seen until just recently. I checked it out and I really liked this one much because it does have a really good story. It very much matters that it takes place in a small town because this is a film that kind of centers around small town gossip. It's about the town's doctor and everyone in the town is turning against him and turning their backs on him, talking behind his back because both his wife and her sister died and people blame him for these things. They were very important women in the community. It's actually a little bit weird that it's 2 women that died. And there are like multiple flashbacks in the movie back to his wife in the past and then her sister in the past. And sometimes it's like, okay, which woman is which? But it is a really good ticking clock movie where his daughter has been buried alive. He's got to find her. Because of that, a lot of the movie takes place in the small town cemetery. So if I did another list of like graveyard horror movies, Macabre would actually fit very well here. Lots of very spooky, very foggy nighttime graveyard scenes. And the ending, I mean, I thought it was solid because the movie is very much a mystery, right? Like, where's his daughter? Who kidnapped his daughter? What happened with these women in the past? It sets up a lot of mysteries. And when we get to the reveal, I didn't see it coming.
And we won't worry about your telling anybody the ending of this picture because you may not be around to tell.
This creaky little black and white 1950s movie definitely outsmarted me. Okay, maybe that's not so hard to do, but it outsmarted me. I was surprised. I was impressed. The Crazies from 2010. 4 people find themselves trapped in their small hometown after they discover their friends and neighbors are quickly going horrifically insane. So of course this version of The Crazies is the remake of the George Romero film from the 1970s, and this is one of the few remakes, and I do mean few, there's not many of them, that I genuinely believe is better than the original. Now I love George Romero, but I've never found The Crazies to be one of his best movies. The first time I saw it, I actually thought it was pretty good, but I rewatched it recently because they showed it at a theater at a horror marathon I went to last October, and I gotta say it really didn't hold up for me. It felt like a movie that maybe I should have never rewatched. It's really hampered by its incredibly low budget, and a lot of the movie is like government officials and military people just kind of yelling at each other and talking on the phone, trying to figure out the situation. But in contrast, the remake just focuses on the actual townspeople on the ground dealing with this crazy stuff going down and trying to survive. They're much more relatable characters. The movie just feels much more focused, and this is another one that focuses on the town sheriff. Here he's played by Timothy Olyphant. Fantastic actor. He's really, really good here. He kind of reminds me of Josh Hartnett as the small town sheriff in 30 Days of Night. The movies are... they're not too dissimilar from each other, to be honest. And 30 Days of Night could have gone on this list too, but I felt like I could only pick one. I've never talked about The Crazies on this channel. But definitely in contrast to the original, this one is so much more brutal, violent, and disturbing. And of course, that does not necessarily make for a better movie. But when you're dealing with the premise of people losing their minds, getting hyper aggressive, getting violent, it helps. And I always thought the Romero Crazies just didn't really sell that. And this one very much does. It is very intense, very brutal, but the characters are likable, relatable as you watch them go through this horrific situation. The small town atmosphere is really good. It's just this little southern town. The people feel very authentically from this area. And it's a really good movie. If you skipped it because you got sick of 2000s remakes and there were way too many of them, this is absolutely one of the best ones.
Stop! Stop it!
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. I'm glad you'll be able to watch it. Happy Halloween. Halloween 3, Season Season of the Witch.
Halloween
The night
3,
no one
Season of the Witch from 1982, which follows Dr. Dan Chalice, who is thrust into a waking nightmare around very popular Halloween masks, the Silver Shamrock Company, and its evil founder. It occurred to me just now while filming this video how hard it is to very quickly and briefly describe what the heck Halloween 3 is about. And this is such a crazy movie. One of the most popular weird bonkers horror movies ever at this point. Not when it came out, of course. And I'm so happy to be talking about it right now. One, because I realized I've never talked about Halloween 3 on this channel before. I don't think I ever have, which is a crime. So it's time to remedy that. And two, I've got a hot take about this movie. A lot of people say, you know, it's a good movie. It's just not a good Halloween movie because it doesn't have Michael Myers, and it would have done so much better if it wasn't part of the Halloween franchise, if it was just a standalone movie. And to that I say, maybe at the time, but who cares about the time? It's all about the lasting legacy, right? I mean, It's a Wonderful Life wasn't successful when it came out. Its lasting legacy is unlike almost anything else. Halloween 3, I think, has gained popularity because it's part of the Halloween franchise. It is so well remembered. It is talked about so much nowadays. The tide has turned on it so greatly, where I think that at this point, this is like one of the most popular 80s horror movies. And I think because it is such a weirdo novelty to be smashed into the Halloween franchise. You've got Tom Atkins in the lead as one of the most unconventional 80s horror leads ever. Just this like beer drinking dad who's going on this mission with this beautiful young woman he just met.
I could sleep in the car.
Where do you want to sleep, Dr. Chalice?
That's a dumb question, Miss Grimpage.
Trying to find out the secret of these Halloween masks and Silver Shamrock and all this kind of stuff. And the plot, the conspiracy that he uncovers, it is so over the top that I think it's awesome. And I love that this movie doesn't really play anything for laughs. It's got some funny moments, you know, kind of in retrospect, but the movie is dead serious about this absolutely insane Halloween mask plot involving kids and Stonehenge. The Halloween atmosphere is great. I like the small town that they go into is like a creepy company town that's all completely run by this one company, this one factory. Very particular kind of creepy small town for this one. So I'm really glad we got that kind of thing represented here. I think Halloween 3 is an absolute blast. I have seen it like countless times, and it's one of the reasons that the Halloween franchise is my favorite horror franchise of all time. I love a horror franchise to have weird ebbs and flows and detours. You know, you got the Scream franchise that's so consistent, but I like the weird twisty turniness of Halloween, and Halloween 3 is the best example of that.
I guess it's kind of cute, in a dorky sort of way. Is it always this quiet? No.
Phantoms from 1998. In the peaceful Colorado town of Snowfield, something evil has wiped out the community. And now it's up to one group of people to stop it, or at least get out of Snowfield alive. So I just recently talked about this movie on a list of 10 surprising horror movies, and I was so pleased to see that by far, by a landslide, the movie in that list that got the most love in the comments was Phantoms. Like, people were going gaga over this movie in the comments. And I that kind of makes sense to me because this movie was so not well received when it came out. It still gets a lot of hate to this day. And I think the cult following it has, because practically every horror movie has a cult following, we're just kind of rabid to hear somebody speak positively about this movie. And I just recently saw it for the first time, picking up the Scream Factory 4K, and I loved it. One of the reasons I loved it is it shocked me so much on what it is. When you look at the original poster for the movie, it looks like it's a Scream ripoff. It looks like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Urban Legends, something like that. But Phantoms is not that. It is a creepy, small town, Lovecraftian, ancient god horror movie. It is a cosmic horror movie. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that that's what this movie turned out to be. I mean, it's got Ben Affleck in it.
But Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms.
It is gruesome. The ideas are so big and crazy. And it's a great small town horror movie too, because it's this really cold Colorado town and it's like all abandoned. It's about, the movie focuses first on two young women, one of which is played by Rose McGowan, who come into this town and discover it's all deserted. So you've got that like deserted small town that's been wiped out by an evil kind of thing. Maybe the CGI isn't perfect. Maybe not everything about the execution is perfect, whatever. I love how ambitious this is, and it definitely succeeds more than it fails. The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue from 1974. When a string of murders hit the remote English countryside, a detective suspects a pair of travelers when it is actually the work of the undead. So with this and Phantoms, we're kind of at the spot in the list where I talk about my favorite first-time discoveries of this year, because this is another one that I saw for the first time this year. And I absolutely loved it. It is such a great 70s zombie movie that I was just not aware of before. And by the way, it also goes by the title Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, which is a fantastic title. So good. But it focuses on these two like kind of young hippie type people who are on a road trip and they stumble into this little town in the English countryside. The atmosphere is absolutely beautiful. This is like such a cozy countryside kind of a movie. But you pair that with absolutely grisly and grotesque zombie action. The zombie stuff here is so good. Now, the movie is kind of a Night of the Living Dead clone in a lot of ways. It's copying Night of the Living Dead in a lot of different ways, because this was before even Dawn of the Dead came out. So Night of the Living Dead was the template. But it takes that and just makes it kind of bigger and badder and grosser, and it really succeeds at that. Something that you can kind of grade zombie movies off of is how do the zombies look? Some of them, they look more creative and interesting. Sometimes they'll just look like fresh corpses, just people kind of stumbling around. This one is more so the fresh corpses, but it's the sounds, not the looks, the sounds that make them so interesting. I love the sound design in this film because when the zombies come on screen, I mean, you just hear this just deep, guttural breathing and moaning that just dominates the whole sound system. It is so creepy. It is so atmospheric. So you get that kind of sounds with zombies coming at you in the beautiful English countryside in this lovely little European town. That makes for a perfect movie. That makes for an absolutely perfect film. And I loved The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue so much. Such a great zombie film. Such a great small town horror movie. One of my favorites I've seen for the first time this year. Absolutely.
Where the hell is this place? Town's not even on the GPS.
Hello?
I don't think anyone's here.
Charlie, run! House of Wax from 2005, which is about a group of unwitting teens who are stranded near a strange wax museum and soon must fight to survive and keep from becoming the next exhibit. So this is one of those 2000s Dark Castle movies. As you can see, I've got it in a 3-pack of other Dark Castle movies. It's not a great visual aid for House of Wax. Maybe I'll just put that down. But I'm a really big fan of the Dark Castle movies because the 2000s was a time when you just got a lot of like really brutal, torture-y, very realistic kind of really rough horror movies. And a lot of that stuff is just not quite my thing. But the Dark Castle movies are such a great antidote to that because they are fun. They are kind of campy. There's a lot of camp to Dark Castle movies. And House of Wax is definitely one of the best and one of the most fun. It is sort of a remake. It purports to be a remake of the Vincent Price House of Wax, which is in and of itself a remake of Mystery of the Wax Museum. Almost forgot there. Mystery of the Wax Museum from the 30s, but it's nothing like either of those movies. A lot of people have pointed out it's a little bit more like Tourist Trap from the 70s. It's got more in common with that movie, but it is such a blast watching these actors who are so standard for the 2000s. I mean, you got Alicia Cuthbert, Jared Padalecki, Chad Michael Murray, Paris Hilton. I mean, it's a who's who of like 2000s hot people who people hated at the time, but I think a lot of people have a lot more nostalgia for now, especially Jared Padalecki for sure. Watching them get stranded on a road trip, a classic setup for one of these movies, and come into an almost totally abandoned, tiny little small town and discover a wax museum that is entirely made of wax. And this is like a dream of mine, to stumble into a tiny remote town and discover this like giant creepy tourist attraction exhibit like a wax museum. That would be so much fun on a road trip, as long as I don't get horrifically murdered like a certain character does in this movie. I mean, his ankle, and then his face. There is grisly stuff in this. I showed this to my wife not long ago, and she was a little freaked out. She was like, "You really should have warned me about how gross this was going to be." And I was like, "Okay, maybe I should have." So I'm warning you guys, House of Wax is gross, but it's a thrill ride. It's action packed. I think House of Wax rules. If you just want a popcorn horror movie night, this is going to deliver.
Everyone, they're here already. You're next.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. A small-town doctor learns that the population of his community is being replaced by emotionless alien duplicates. I mean, is this not like the quintessential small-town horror story? That the little town, the close-knit community you live in, the people that you know, that you see every day, are suddenly different. They are completely changed. They're now emotionless, and they're trying to make you one of them. It is such a classic story, and it's such a perfect story for social commentary, so much so that nobody can really agree what the social commentary behind this movie means. I mean, is it anti-communist, and it's the communists trying to take away your individuality? Is it anti-McCarthyism, and those people trying to make everyone in Hollywood just like them? Is it just anti-1950s conformity? I mean, you can put whatever you want onto this and it works. And I think that's so interesting. But as a movie, I think it completely holds up to this day. I think it is awesome. I absolutely adore the characters here. Kevin McCarthy is so good and so likable as this doctor, and he's the guy who became a standard for cameos in 80s horror movies because he was just so famous off of this movie. And he's got a great romance with an old flame who comes into town, and watching them just kind of bond together and try to survive this thing together in collaboration with some friends. It's so fun. And the special effects, what little you get in this movie, are really, really good. And 1950s, whatever, they hold up to this day. And it's got to be one of the most influential sci-fi horror movies ever, because it's been remade, reimagined, ripped off so many times. That reminds me, I've got to get the 1970s version of this into a list sometime soon to give me an excuse to rewatch it. But as of now, this is still my favorite version of the story, and it's one of the greatest small-town horror movies of all time.
You had a very close call. Just lie still. I'm gonna give you something. It's gonna make you feel even better.
Dead and Buried.
Dead and Buried from 1981. After a series of gory murders committed by mobs of townspeople against visiting tourists, the small town sheriff must investigate to discover the dark secret. I think Dead and Buried is such a remarkable 80s horror movie. When you got so many movies in this decade that are just really fun, bright, and colorful thrill rides, Dead and Buried is so grim. It is so serious. It is so quietly disturbing in so many ways and so beautifully well made. I mean, this is not some campy, kitschy thing. This movie is gorgeous from start to finish. It is so well shot. The performances are perfect. Phenomenal cast with James Ferrantino in the lead as the small town sheriff. That's the lead of a lot of these movies, but so incredibly realistic and likable here. Jack Albertson, yes, from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, is the town coroner. You've even got Robert Englund in here. And the mystery of this movie is so compelling because Dead and Buried doesn't cleanly fit into any horror subgenre. It is so its own thing. So you can't watch it and be like, oh yeah, this is this kind of movie. I've seen this kind of thing a lot. You haven't really seen Dead and Buried. It's so unpredictable and twisty and odd in ways that I think is so cool. It has got so many terrifying, visceral sequences in it. The opening scene is one for the ages. The opening scene is so incredibly good here. And I just love it. It's got a small seaside town kind of atmosphere. The town is incredibly important in this. People are constantly saying the name of it, Potter's Bluff, saying what happens in Potter's Bluff, what it's like in Potter's Bluff. It has such a wonderful sense of place. You see so many of the same people, it feels like this actual community that I think is so good. But the things that are happening there are horrible. Our sheriff has got to figure out what's happening and stop it. And we, the audience, are just along for the ride. So if you somehow missed Dead and Buried, it's probably not one of the most classic 80s horror movies, although it's got to have one of the most classic 80s horror posters. I mean, look at this poster. But it's like quietly one of the best. Absolutely excellent film. I can't recommend it enough. Before I go, I just want to give a huge thank you to my patrons who truly make this channel possible, with a special shout out to Tara Sikora, Brian Hay, and Amanda BC. You guys are the absolute best. So that's my list, but what are some more creepy small town horror movies that you recommend? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's talk about some more films. And if you want to hang out with me more, you can click this video for my other small town horror movies list, or this playlist for a lot of my other horror atmosphere focused lists. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. I will see you next time.